I saw something that was a little bit troubling from Rabbi Mazuz a few weeks ago. Rabbi Mazuz was talking about the Binyan Beis HaMikdash and the issue that we discussed before, that which was built by Moshe Rabbeinu under his guidance and his authority lasted forever. The Mishkan never fell into the hands of the enemy. That which the Philistines destroyed at Shiloh was the temporary structure that surrounded the Mishkan, but the Mishkan, as it was in the wilderness, was completely evacuated to Nov, where the Kohanim set it back up. However, we do know that already in Deborah's time, almost 2 centuries after that of Moses, they were already weaving new curtains for the temple, for the Mishkan, that is. What kind of curtains? Well, there's the outer layer of curtains. I wouldn't say flimsy, I don't mean that in a disparaging way, I just mean they're very thin material type of curtain that cordoned off the Azara, what was called the Klayim. That basically was what showed where the temple courtyard stood at the time, and the curtain that separated the Kodesh and the Kodesh Kodeshim, and apparently the curtain that they began to hang at the entranceway. So those wear out after a while. So the original Parachoth eventually were taken out of service. In Second Temple times, they were always replacing the curtains, and it says that was something that Deborah herself did. She wove curtains for the sanctuary. So those didn't survive, but the rest of the temple implements and the appointments, those were evacuated to Nov. They didn't fall into the hands of the enemy. In Solomon's temple, did fall into the hands of the enemy and was destroyed, but it lasted for quite a while. The Second Temple fell into the hands of the enemy many times, but it survived. It was eventually taken apart in Herodian times, disassembled, dismantled, and rebuilt from scratch. And that temple was the one with which we are most familiar. That's the one that you see in most renditions of what a temple did look like and should look like. More on that later. And Rabbi Azu says Herod was far from being a tzaddik. How long did his temple last? Well, he finished building it around the beginning of the Common Era and was destroyed no later than the year 70. So it didn't last that long. So too the Jewish Commonwealth. The first Jewish Commonwealth was established by the greatest people, and so it lasted 8.5 centuries. The second Commonwealth was established by individuals who were tzaddikim, but of a lesser stature, and that Commonwealth lasted for less than 6 centuries. The current Commonwealth, like Herod's temple, was established by people who were not as meritorious. Yes, they have the merit thereof, but we have to very much worry that because God has given us his promise, we have to keep the Torah. If we're seeing that facets of the Torah are coming true today, we must worry that this Commonwealth may also come to an end. Be very afraid of that, by the way. This Commonwealth may come crashing down on us if we do not keep the Torah. Now, we discussed this when the China virus thing started. What are the 3 horsemen? Shmuel, you remember this one?
The 3 horsemen.
The three signs of retribution that God gives us as a nation: plague and pestilence, war. We've had both already. What's the next one? Now I want to say it: plague, pestilence, war, and famine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so get ready. By the way, as has been pointed out by people who understand economics and read between the lines, Dr. England is very sure about this. Famine's brought on of one of 2 ways: either natural disaster, drought, blight, etc., volcanic eruptions, whatever it may be, or bad economic policy on the national and international level. And it seems that despite all the gifts that God has given us in this pre-Messianic age leading up to the Messianic age, where food is plentiful and technology has made it that people don't need to fight for anything. It's very easy. We have plentiful food. We're still going to deprive ourselves of that food by through things such as inflation and other stupidities. So watch out. They're bringing famine on, and I unfortunately I don't believe that the people in charge are going to, just like they're not going to do anything to help grow the Jewish borders and solidify a hold on what we have now and protect the Jewish population. So too, they're not going to want to protect us from the oncoming famine. What happens is usually do-gooder types, just decide they want to meddle too much into things that are beyond human control, like the economy and the environment, and they'll cause more destruction than benefit. So watch out. Our secular commonwealth doesn't have staying power, and we have to worry. So I think that a passage from the Book of Kings is pretty apt at this point. I'm going to put up on the screen. What do we have here? There's a section in the second Book of Kings. Of course, the division into two books is completely artificial, but for convenience sake, we're going to discuss it. It diverges from stories of the kings necessarily, and begins of stories concerning the prophet Elisha. Although the latter part of the first Book of Kings focuses on Eliyahu, I remember the Judaica Press had an outline form of the books of Kings. So the first book says that this last section is Ahab and Elijah. Achav is the main figure, the king of the Israelites, the northern kingdom of Israel, the 10 tribes. And Eliyahu, Elijah, is the major prophet, his adversary. Although if you study the stories there, one story, Eliyahu is the main figure, and then the next story, it's an anonymous Navi. He might as well be a standard for Eliyahu Navi, but he's specifically not Eliyahu Navi. And then the next story involves Eliyahu Navi, and the next story involves a different Navi, Michayahu ben Yimla. I don't know how they pronounce it in English. It says Micah Jehu. Okay, yeah, I guess you shouldn't be pronouncing it that way. That sounds wrong. Normally, when we pronounce Yods like J's, that makes sense. Jacob and Judah, that sounds normal, but Micah Jehu doesn't sound so good for some reason. So we'll stick with Michayahu. He's in the fourth story. Then the fifth story is Eliyahu Navi, and so is the sixth story. But it's interspersed with other Nevi'im being the stars. And of course, Rashi and others playing personality parsimony identify the anonymous Navi of the second story with the identified Navi of the fourth story, Michayahu. Okay. If he was, though, obviously, then it would have said so. But Elisha is the star of the subsequent section. And one of the last stories is Elisha fulfilling the mission of which Eliyahu had been notified much earlier. That now, Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, longtime adversary of the Israelites, we postulated before, based on the verses, that it was Asa, king of Yehuda, who brought Ben-Hadad upon the Israelites already in the reign of Baasha. Halfway through Baasha's reign, Ben-Hadad is introduced. He was bribed by Asa to attack the 10 tribes. Is that the best thing? The prophets fault him for that. At least the sages do. Excuse me. And he continued being king of the Israelites through the subsequent revolution, the establishment of the house of Omri, and the entire time of Achav's life. He is Achav's also main opponent, and during the reign of Achav's sons, Achaziah and Yehoram. But eventually it came time for Ben-Hadad to be replaced by Hazael. And here we read about Elisha meeting this Hazael and informing him that he is to be king after Ben-Hadad. So let's read it inside. Elisha came to Damascus, and Ben-Hadad, the king of Aram, was ill. And it was told to him, saying, the man of God has come unto here. Which is a surprise. Normally, people have to go to the land of Israel to Elisha. A previous story had it that Ben-Hadad sent Naaman to the land of Israel. Let's go see. There's a Navi. Elisha said, bring Naaman right to me. I will cure him so that people know there are true prophets among the Israelites. But now Elisha has quite a reputation, goes all the way to Damascus himself. So the king said to Hazael, of whom we know now that Hazael was apparently someone who served the king. Take in your hand a tribute and go to greet the man of God. And you will seek of God from him, saying, shall I live from this illness? Okay? Ask of God. At least ask the prophets, even about their own mundane matters. And if God wants to answer, they could answer. He could answer. So Hazael went to greet Elisha. And he took a tribute in his hand and all the good of Damascus. That means whatever the local delicacies, whatever was good at the time there, good fruits, whatever it may be. Masar b'im gamal, 4 camel loads worth. And he went, he stood before him, that's before Elisha. Vayomer, Bincha ben Hadad melech Aram, your son Ben Hadad, king of Aram, Shlachani elecha limor, sent me to you, saying, Ha'achem mechalizeh, shall live from this illness. Vayomer elau Elisha. And Elisha said to him, Lech emor lo hayoth techiyah. Go say to him, but it's written, no. Okay, these words are homophones, but it happens a few times enough. It's spelled no, but it means to him. Sometimes it's spelled to him and it means no. There's like 3 places in the Torah where you have that. And also any other time. And it usually means that there's some hidden double meaning here. The plain way I read it is, go tell him, what? Hayothichyeh, you shall live, or surely live. But here, if you read it according to the Ketiv, it means, go tell him you're not going to live. But God has shown me that he will surely die. And Elisha maintained his composure. He was able to do so until he couldn't hold it anymore. And then he cried. So Elisha, this one verse is telling us that Elisha was was very emotional about this, and he couldn't control it anymore. Wherever Hazael, Hazael, this time spelled without a hey, maybe that's significant. Hazael is one of the few Hebrew names in the Bible with a completely silent hey in the middle of a word. Completely silent hey, like the name Pedatsur or Asael, is a rare thing. If you have a hey in the middle of a word, it usually has a vowel or chataf something, or maybe just a shvanach. But here, it's completely silent, so it doesn't change. It could be left out. So Hazael asked him, Madua l'nivucheh, why is my master crying? Vayomer ki hadati eith asher ta'aseh livnei Yisrael ra'ah. He said, because I know what you shall do to the children of Israel, what bad you should do to them. Mivtzerehem tishalach ba'esh. Their fortresses you shall set on fire. Ulfachurehem b'cherev ta'aroch. And their young men shall you kill by the sword. That's in battle. Wa'alulehem taratesh. You're going to smash their younglings. Wa'haruthehem tivakeon. You're going to cut open their pregnant women. Basically, Elisha describing what the Arameans are going to do to the Israelites eventually under Hazael's leadership. And basically, by the way, what we sustained a year and a half ago on Shmini Atzeres, and what we stand to happen many times more because of our foolish actions. Vayomer Hazael, ki ma avdecha hakelev ki ya'aseh hadavar gadol zeh. Hazael responded, what am I, some sort of dog? Your servant is some sort of dog that I would do this great thing? Vayomer Elisha, hirani avanu yatacha melech al Aram. Elisha completed the prophecy and said, God has shown me that you will be king over Aram. So Hazael didn't have to actually anoint him. Eliyahu had been told originally to anoint Hazael as king. Sometimes anointment is not physical, as Rav Kapach points out many times. Any Davidic king was considered God's anointed, even if he wasn't physically anointed. The vast majority were not. Continues that now Hazael's been told Ben Hadad is going. Hazael, who's apparently not his son, was meant to replace him. He went away from Elisha. He went back to his master. And he said to him, the master said to Hazael, that would be Ben Hadad, Ma amar lecha Elisha, what did Elisha tell you? Vayomer, he said, Amar li hayothichyeh. He said to me, you shall surely live. It was the next day that he took the towel, he dunked it in water. This is Hazael. He put it upon his face and he died. Was Hazael trying to help him or trying to kill him? Machlokes. The point is, if he was trying to help him, it means he was giving a cold compress. If he was trying to kill him, it means he was basically giving waterboard torture, but did it until he actually died. And Hazael reigned in his place. So that's how I feel right now. I feel like Elisha. You don't have to be a Navi to see what's happening. People who know, people who understand history, we've seen this episode, we've seen this story before, we know what happens. Rav Sharkey was talking about how you have the spiritual level and the physical level of the prophetic story. Gave the example of the Battle of the Eye. You could read it in the book of Yeshua, the book of Joshua, as having told us why the Israelites lost so badly on their first attempt to conquer the city. Uses language of perhaps a faulty plan, bad tactics, but also because there had been a great sin committed by a member family of the Israelites. So they had to solve that problem of the sin, deal with and punishing the evildoers, and then they had to deal with the tactics that they used initially. So you see this on two levels, two layers of how it malfunctioned. If you are looking at the current situation from a purely socio-political, tactical framework in this world, take God out of it, which you should not, but that's what many people are doing. They see that, well, if last time you gave the terrorists everything they wanted in exchange for a Jewish prisoner, you gave in to their, willingly, almost happily, their extortion, and you got Shmini Atzeres, what do you think you're going to pay next time? And on the spiritual level, what do you think will happen when you commit terrible sins like this? The Torah says very explicitly, those enemy combatants who raised their hands against Israel, took up weapons against Israel, were chayiv misa a long time ago. They're not even entitled to due process. They're to be killed, hopefully through battle. But they are all meant to be killed. And killing them wouldn't be extrajudicial, wouldn't be an act of, let's say, vigilantism. It'd be an act of self-defense. And self-defense is not just always permissible. It's not just a right, as they say in Western language. It is an obligation. That's just how it goes on the political level. And on the spiritual level, that's what happens. If you have these averas, you commit these averas, you're going to get the result. And a lot of times it's not even a punishment. It's like when people, like the Meraglim, they want to stay in Gullus. What was their punishment, so-called? Okay, you get what you want. Get to stay in Gullus. You want your enemies to prosper and have another chance at killing you. You will get just that. This isn't some sort of fancy hashkafa shir using Maharals and Rambams and Kuzari. This is the Aleph Beis of how divine justice works. Mida keneged mida. You let the enemy go free, he will come back and get you. And there are many words of the prophets that we've seen before regarding this matter, which is why we should be very cautious. We should repent now. Speaking of which, probably seen there are a lot of people who are very happy about what President Trump has been able to accomplish the last week. He's getting a lot of things done. If you're as an opponent, so you're very much opposed. And if you're happy with what the promises he made, so you're happy. I'm still not happy with Trump for my own reasons. But if I were an American and I didn't care about Israel and I cared strictly about myself, I'd be happy. Okay, but I think it's also wrong. From what I can gather from Hazael, Trump's policy of mass deportations, rounds up and deportations, is not according to the Torah. Those criminals should all have been executed. Someone told me, "Oh, you agree with me? It shouldn't be. It should have chanina." No, amnesty for them. Allow them to stay. No, any bnei Noach who are rapists and murderers and even thieves are chayiv misa. But what are you going to do? If you have a proper Gentile society, you will put these criminals to death.